Number 13, solving for x. X is the hypotenuse of this right triangle, and we are asked to find a second side given an angle and a side. This is going to be trig, our SOHCAHTOA. So first we want to decide which angle we want to use as our reference angle. You can use 52 degrees, or you can take the 52 away from 90 and figure out what this angle measure is. I always use the angle that they give to us. That way, in case I find this angle incorrectly, I know that I won't make a mistake there. So in relationship to this 52-degree angle, 29 is adjacent to it. And x is the hypotenuse. So we use this trig function with an a and an h in it, which is the cosine function. And that says the cosine of your angle is equal to the adjacent side over the hypotenuse. Now I fill in the blanks. The angle measure is 52, because we didn't use the 38. And that equals our adjacent side, which is 29, over x. Okay, we're going to first figure out what the cosine of 52 is. Cosine of 52 is equal to, we want 4 digits, 0.6157. And that equals 29 over x. And now we want to cross multiply. 29 times 1 is 29, and that equals 0.6157 times x. Now we want to divide both sides by 0.6157 in order to get x by itself. So that'll get us x equals 29 divided by 0.6157, which to the nearest tenth is 47.1. Number 15. A ramp at a loading dock makes a 13-degree angle with the ground. So we have a ramp, and then here's the loading dock, and the ramp makes a 13-degree angle with the ground. The ramp is 25 meters from the building. So here's the building, here's the ramp, here's the 25 meters. What is the length of the ramp? Here's the ramp. Okay, once again we have one side and one angle. The angle is not a special right angle, so we're going to use trig. So, SOHCAHTOA. So we identify the sides in relationship to the 13-degree angle. 25 meters is the adjacent side, and across from the right angle is always the hypotenuse. So once again, we're using the cosine function because it has an a and an h in it. Cosine function says the cosine of your angle equals the adjacent side over the hypotenuse. So now I substitute my values in. The angle measure is 13 degrees. The adjacent side I identified as 25. And the hypotenuse is what we're looking for, which is x. Okay, I want to identify or figure out what cosine of 13 is. Cosine of 13 is equal to 0.974, and that'll become a 4, which equals 25 over x. I'm going to cross multiply, and I get 25. I'm going to come down here. I get 25 equals 0.9744x, because that's times x. And I want the x alone, so I need to divide both sides by 0.9744. So my x will equal 25 divided by 0.9744, which is, to the nearest tenths, 25.7. Okay, number 17. Baseball diamonds are square shaped. Well, as soon as they tell us that, that gives us a hint that we have all sides congruent in the square, and we have all of these angles are 90-degree angles in the square. Find the distance between the first base, here's first base, and third base, here's third base, to the nearest hundredth of a foot, if each side of the baseball diamond is 90 feet. So if each side is 90 feet, if I pull this part right here, we have the triangle outlined here. So in this triangle, we have two congruent sides, and we have a right angle. So that means that these two angles here must be 45 degrees. So that makes this a special right triangle. So opposite the 45 is N. Opposite the 45 is N. Opposite the 90 is N times the square root of 2. And very easily, they already solved for N for us. N equals 90. So now we just erase this N here. Oops. Then we put 90. So our answer is 90 times the square root of 2. Now it asks for the nearest hundredth of a foot, but if you look at the answer choices, they gave us 90 times the square root of 2. So there's no decimals. Number 19. In the figure below, the value of x is, and this time we have to use the multiple choice. So we have two sides, and we're looking for the third. Definitely know what we're using Pythagorean theorem, which is c squared equals a squared plus b squared. Okay, they give us c, which is 7, so we're going to square it. That equals a squared, which is 6 squared, plus b squared, I'll call x squared. 7 squared is 49, and that equals 6 squared, which is 6 times 6, which is 36, plus x squared. I'm going to subtract 36 from both sides of my equation. So I get 49 minus 36, which is 13, and that equals x squared. In order to find x, I take the square root of both sides, and that gives me x equals the square root of 13. Normally, I would have put that in my calculator. However, the answer choice was there, and I could identify that in the middle of my equation. Number 21. The captain of a small boat spots a lighthouse. So here's my lighthouse at an angle of elevation. So remember, angle of elevation, we start horizontal going up. So that's 5 degrees here. If the lighthouse is 250 feet high, so that's how tall it is, what is the distance between the boat, here's my boat, and the lighthouse, here's my lighthouse. So I want this distance x to the nearest tenth of a foot. Okay, so we have one side and an angle, and we're looking for another side. We're using trig again. So your toe, SOHCAHTOA, SOHCAHTOA, SOHCAHTOA. Okay, we're going to use 5 degrees as our reference angle, and with 5 degrees we have the opposite side, because 250 is opposite 5 degrees, and x is adjacent to, not the hypotenuse of the triangle, in relationship to 5 degrees. So opposite and adjacent is our TOA. And that says the tangent of my angle equals the opposite side over the adjacent side. And I get to erase and replace. Tangent of my angle is 5 degrees. That equals my opposite, which is 250, over my adjacent, which is x. I'm going to find tangent of 5, and that's 4 digits, 0.087, and up 1 digit, 5, which equals 250 over x. I'm going to cross multiply, I get 250. I'm going to come down here. 250 equals 0.0875 times x. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 0.0875 to solve for x. So 250 divided by 0.0875 is a really big number, which makes sense because if the tower is that high and you're this far away with such a small angle of elevation, you have a higher number. So x is going to be 2,857 point, what kind of did they ask us to? Nearest tenth. So 0.1.